In 1961, a mechanic at a Gulf station in Chattanooga, Tennessee, saved a man's Chevy from the scrapyard with a 30-cent box of baking soda. The battery had boiled over on the drive down from the hills, and the acid was eating a hole through the tray and creeping toward the fender. The mechanic mixed the powder with water, poured it over the terminals and the tray, and watched it foam as it killed the acid. He wiped it clean, coated the metal, and sent the man home. The fender that would have rusted through in a season was still solid 10 years later. He charged $1. The box on his shelf cost 30 cents, and over the years it did the work of a shelf of products that had not been invented yet. That job is number 24 on this list. Baking soda was not a car product. It was older than the automobile itself. Sodium bicarbonate, sold in the same yellow box since 1846, sat in every kitchen and on every mechanic's shelf in America. A man did not buy it for his car. He bought it for 30 cents and found 40 uses for it because he understood one thing the modern aisle has made us forget. Acid eats metal, and baking soda kills acid. Grease burns, and baking soda smothers fire. Grime clings, and baking soda scours it without a scratch. One box did all of it. Today there is a separate bottle for each job, each one $10. We were sold the same box, broken into 40 pieces. Number 20 put out an engine fire with one handful of white powder from a can that cost 30 cents. Number 24 neutralized acid that would have eaten a hole clean through a fender, saving a body panel the dealer wanted $300 to replace. And number 2, the weekly habit every careful man kept, quietly did the work of a shelf of specialty cleaners that did not exist yet, and the companies that sell them now would rather you never learned one box did it all. These 25 tricks were not about a cheap box of powder. They were about a man who understood the chemistry under his own hands well enough that one product did the work of 40. The box was simple. Knowing when acid needed killing and when a fire needed smothering was not. That knowledge saved his customers thousands, and it is nearly gone. This is what sat on that shelf. Hit that subscribe button, and let us count down the 25 forgotten garage tricks 1960s mechanics used baking soda for that saved thousands. Number 25. Cleaning the corrosion off the battery terminals. The white-green crust that left you dead in the driveway. You brushed a paste of baking soda and water over the crusted posts and clamps and watched it foam as it killed the acid. You scrubbed with an old toothbrush, rinsed, and dried it. The terminals came up bright, and the faded connection came back strong. A station mechanic in 1962 did this on every car that cranked slow, and cured most before he ever touched the battery itself. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate, an alkali, and the crust on a post is dried acid. One kills the other on contact. A dead battery was rarely dead. It was only buried under acid no one had cleaned off. Number 24. Neutralizing spilled battery acid before it ate the metal. The silent thief that turned a fender to lace. When a battery boiled over or a cell leaked, you poured baking soda over the spill wherever the acid had run. It foamed hard as it neutralized, and the fizzing told you the acid was dying. You rinsed the residue away and coated the bare metal. A man in 1961 whose battery leaked onto the tray caught it this way in time, and the sheet metal a dealer would have charged hundreds to cut and weld stayed solid. Acid works whether you watch it or not. The alkali stopped it the moment it touched. Rust from acid was not slow. It was a hole in a fender by spring, unless powder killed it first. Number 23. Cleaning and deodorizing a musty interior. The smell of damp and age that no air freshener could cover. You sprinkled baking soda across the seats, the carpet, and the headliner, and let it sit overnight to draw the odor out. In the morning, you vacuumed it away. The mildew, the smoke, the years of a closed car came out with the powder, and the interior smelled clean instead of masked. For a used car man in 1963, a car that smelled fresh sold faster than one that only looked clean. Sodium bicarbonate does not hide a smell. It absorbs and neutralizes the molecules that carry it. The air freshener covered the smell. The box removed it. Number 22. Scrubbing the white wall tires white again. The gray band that made a good car look tired. You worked a paste of baking soda into the white wall with a stiff brush, scrubbing the road grime and brake dust out of the rubber. A rinse, and the band came back bright white, the way it had looked on the lot. A man in 1962 who washed his own car every Saturday finished with the white walls because a clean white wall was the last inch of pride in a working man's car. The mild abrasive scoured the grime without cutting the rubber the way harsh cleaners did. White walls were not vanity. They were the sign a man kept after every inch of what he owned.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us, who still believe a man should be able to keep his own car running. It's the Forgotten Mechanic's Handbook, the old-fashioned car repair secrets our grandfathers used to fix any engine and keep it running for decades. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay another mechanic ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 21. Cleaning and brightening the chrome bumpers and trim. The dull, spotted metal that aged the whole car. You made a soft paste, rubbed it over the chrome with a damp cloth, and lifted the water spots, the haze, and the first bloom of rust. A rinse and a buff, and the bumper threw back the light again. A station attendant in 1963 finished every wash this way because bright chrome was what a customer saw first. The gentle alkali cut the film and neutralized the corrosion. Without the scratches, a gritty polish left. Dull chrome was not worn out. It was only dirty, and a box brought it back. Number 20. Smothering a small grease or electrical fire. The coffee can that stood between a spark and a burned car. When grease flared on the hot engine or a wire shorted and caught, you threw a handful of baking soda at the base of the flame. It smothered the fire and released a gas that starved it, and the flame that could have taken the whole car died in seconds. Every careful mechanic in 1961 kept a coffee can of it within arm's reach, because a fire gave you no time to run for anything farther. Heated, sodium bicarbonate releases carbon dioxide, which smothers flame the way a proper extinguisher does. A grease fire was a total loss in 90 seconds. A 30-cent can stopped it in 5. Number 19. Cleaning the battery tray and the acid rust around it, the rotted shelf that let the battery fall through. You lifted the battery out, poured a baking soda solution over the tray and the hold down, and scrubbed the crusted acid and rust away as it foamed. You rinsed it, dried it, and coated the metal before the battery went back. A fleet mechanic in 1962 checked every tray each spring, because a tray eaten through dropped a battery onto the road at speed. The alkali neutralized the acid that had eaten the tray from the day the battery first vented. The tray did not rot because it was old. It rotted because acid sat on it, uncleaned, for years. Number 18. Cutting the grease off your hands. The black that soap alone would not touch. You wet your hands, worked a spoon of baking soda into a paste, and scrubbed. The mild grit lifted the ground-in grease that plain soap slid over, and left the skin clean without the harsh burn of a solvent. A mechanic in 1960 kept a box by the shop sink because a man who worked with his hands still wanted them clean at his own supper table. The gentle abrasive scoured the grease loose while the alkali cut it without cracking the skin. Clean hands were the line a working man kept between the shop and his home. Number 17, deodorizing the trunk after a leak, the wet, mildewed smell that spread to everything you carried. When water had left the trunk musty, you sprinkled baking soda over the mat and the spare well, let it sit a day to pull the damp and the smell out, then vacuumed it clean. The mildew odor that had ridden in the groceries and the luggage was gone. For a traveling man in 1963 who lived out of his trunk half the week, a trunk that did not stink was a small daily mercy. Sodium bicarbonate draws the moisture and neutralizes the odor at once. The leak made the smell, the box unmade it. Here is something nobody is tracking. The men who kept a 30-cent box on the bench and knew 40 uses for it are nearly gone. They came up understanding a simple chemistry that no one teaches anymore. Acid eats metal, alkali kills acid, and a box of powder stood between a man's car and the rust that would have taken it. One box neutralized acid, smothered fire, scoured chrome, and pulled the smell out of a car. And the mechanics applied the judgment about which trouble needed which. That judgment was the real tool. The box was only how it reached the metal. The young men replacing them grew up in an aisle of 100 bottles, each promising one thing, and they never learned that one honest box did most of them. The knowledge was never written down. It lived in the hands of men who are leaving us. We are not writing it down fast enough. Number 16, clearing the haze off the inside of the windshield. The greasy film that turned every oncoming headlight into a star. You put a little baking soda on a damp cloth and wiped the inside of the glass, cutting the film of vinyl haze and tobacco smoke. A wipe with a dry cloth, and the glass was clear. The glare that had strained your eyes at night was gone. A cab driver in 1962 cleaned his glass every week because a clear windshield at night was the difference between seeing a child and not seeing one. The mild abrasive lifted the film that a dry rag only smeared across the glass. The haze was not the glass wearing out. It was a film, and the box took it off. Number 15, scrubbing light surface rust off the bright metal. The first orange bloom before it became a hole. You made a thick paste, worked it over the rust spots on the bumper, the trim, or a tool with a damp cloth, and scrubbed. The mild grit and the alkali lifted the surface rust without gouging the metal underneath. A rinse and a coat of oil, and the spot was stopped. A country mechanic in 1963 caught rust early on his regulars' cars before a spot of orange became a panel that needed replacing. The gentle abrasive took the rust without grinding the good metal away. Surface rust caught early cost a box of powder. Caught late, it cost a fender. Number 14, lifting bug splatter and tree sap off the paint. The baked-on mess that a rag only smeared wider. You made a soft paste and laid it gently over the dried bugs and the sap, let it soften them a minute, then wiped with a damp cloth. The mess that had bonded to the paint came away without the scrubbing that would have scratched it. A man in 1962 who drove long summer highways cleaned his hood at every stop because baked-on bugs etched the paint if they sat. The mild alkali loosened the residue, while the fine grit lifted it, soft enough to spare the finish. The bugs did not ruin the paint by landing. They ruined it by being left. Number 13, absorbing a fresh oil spill on the garage floor. The slick that became a stain and a fall waiting to happen. When oil hit the concrete, you covered it at once with baking soda and let it drink the oil up. You swept the soaked powder away, and it took the slick and most of the stain with it. A garage man in 1961 kept a box by the bench for this because a slick floor put a man on his back faster than any tool did. The powder pulled the oil out of the surface and neutralized the odor a rag left behind. The spill was not the danger. The spill left uncovered was. Number 12. Cleaning the corroded ground straps and connectors. The green film that dimmed lights and killed gauges. You brushed a baking soda paste over the corroded ground strap and the connector ends and scrubbed the green corrosion away as it foamed. A rinse and a dry, and the lights that had gone dim and the gauges that had gone dead came back. A fleet mechanic in 1962 traced a truck's flickering dash to one corroded ground this way, a fault two other men had chased into the wiring. The alkali killed the corrosion, which was only acid and moisture eaten into the metal. The circuit was not broken, the ground was corroded, and the box cleaned it. Number 11. Cleaning and freshening the vinyl seats and mats. The grimy, sticky surfaces that no wipe left truly clean. You worked baking soda on a damp cloth over the vinyl seats, the door panels, and the rubber mats, lifting the ground-in grime and the smell together. A wipe with a clean cloth, and the surfaces came up clean instead of sticky with old dirt. A used car man in 1963 cleaned an interior this way before every sale because a clean cabin sold a car the paint could not. The mild abrasive and the alkali cut grease and odor at once. Without the slick film, a harsh cleaner left. The vinyl was only dirty, and the box brought it back. Number 10. Deodorizing the ashtray and killing the smoke smell. The stale reek that soaked into everything in the cabin. You emptied the ashtray, put a spoon of baking soda in the bottom, and sprinkled a little across the seats to pull the smoke out of the fabric. It absorbed the stale smell instead of covering it, and killed the reek of the next cigarette before it spread. A salesman in 1962 who lived in his car kept the ashtray dusted this way because a customer smelled a stale car before he saw a clean one. Sodium bicarbonate neutralizes the odors in smoke rather than masking them with a stronger scent. The smell was not stuck in the car. It was stuck until the box pulled it out. Number 9. The open box kept in the toolbox drawer. The quiet guard against damp and rust in the chest. You set a small open box of baking soda in the bottom drawer of the toolbox. It drew the moisture and odor out of the closed steel chest, and the tools that would have freckled with rust in the humid months stayed dry and clean. A country mechanic in 1962 kept a box in every drawer because tools were bought once and meant to last a lifetime, not a season. The powder absorbed the damp and neutralized the acids in the air that started rust on bare steel. The rust in a toolbox was not bad luck. It was damp no one had thought to draw off. There is a reason no one tells you a 30-cent box does it all. Follow the money. Walk the aisle of any parts store today. There is a battery terminal cleaner for $7, an upholstery cleaner for $9, a chrome polish for $10, a white wall cleaner, a fabric deodorizer, a degreaser, each in its own bottle. Bought separately, the shelf that does what one box once did runs past $50. The American car care market is worth billions, and it grows every time a single job is split into its own bottle. The men who kept a box of baking soda did the opposite. One product, 30 cents, and the knowledge to use it a dozen ways. 30 cents did the work of $50. Nobody profits from reminding you of that. Number 8. Clearing the road film off the headlight lenses. the dull glass that threw half the light it should. You wiped the glass headlight lenses with a damp cloth and a little baking soda, cutting the baked-on road film and grime that dimmed them. A rinse and a wipe, and the lenses threw a bright beam down the road again. A man in 1963 who drove dark country roads did this before every long night because a headlight half buried in film left half the road in the dark. The mild abrasive lifted the film off the glass without scratching it. The dim light was not a weak bulb, it was a dirty lens, and the box cleaned it. Number 7. Cleaning up after a battery boiled over. The acid mist that spread over everything under the hood. When a battery had boiled in the heat and thrown acid across the hold down, the cables, and the nearby engine metal, you flooded the whole area with baking soda solution. It foamed everywhere the acid had reached, and the fizzing mapped the damage. You rinsed it clean and coated the metal against the rust that acid always started. A fleet mechanic in 1962 cleaned up a boilover this way before it could eat the wiring and brackets around it. The alkali neutralized acid you could not even see, wherever the fizz told you it had landed. The boilover did its damage quietly. The box found it and stopped it. Number 6. Brightening the aluminum valve covers and trim. The dull, oxidized metal that made a clean engine look neglected. You worked a baking soda paste over the aluminum valve covers and polished parts, lifting the gray oxidation and grime. A rinse and a buff, and the aluminum came up bright, and a clean engine looked cared for instead of tired. A man in 1963 who took pride in his engine bay finished it this way because an owner who kept the engine bright caught trouble early. The gentle alkali cut the oxidation off the soft aluminum without the deep scratches a harsh polish left. The dull metal was not corroded through. It was only oxidized on top, and the box lifted it. Number 5. Cleaning the generator and starter terminals. The corroded posts that bled off the current before it did its work. You brushed a baking soda paste over the corroded terminals on the generator and the starter, scrubbing the green crust away as it foamed. A rinse and a dry, and the current ran clean again, the generator charging full and the engine cranking strong. A station mechanic in 1962 cleaned these before he condemned a slow starter or a weak generator, and most came back to life. The alkali killed the corrosion that had bled off the current for months. The starter was not weak. Its connection was corroded, and the box cured it. Number 4. Scrubbing the old oil stains out of the concrete. The black map of every leak the garage had ever held. You wet the set stain, covered it with baking soda, worked it in with a stiff brush, and let it draw the oil up out of the concrete. You scrubbed and rinsed, and the stain that had darkened the floor for years lifted pale. A garage man in 1961 kept his floor clean this way because a clean floor showed a fresh drip the moment a car began to leak. The powder pulled the oil from the concrete and neutralized the smell that soaked the garage. A stained floor hid the new leak. A clean one showed it the day it started. Number 3. The battery once over that stopped the corrosion before it spread. The 5-minute check that saved the whole electrical system. Every so often you pulled the caps, checked the acid level, and wiped the posts and tray with a baking soda solution before any crust could take hold. You caught the first bloom of corrosion and killed it before it climbed the cables and ate the tray. A careful mechanic in 1962 did this for his regulars because corrosion caught early was a wiped rag, and caught late was a new battery, new cables, and a rusted tray. The alkali stopped the acid at the first sign before it could do the damage that cost real money. The corrosion did not appear overnight. It grew uncaught on batteries no one wiped. Number 2, the weekly walk with the box. The small habit that kept a whole car clean and sound. On a Saturday, you went over the car with the box and a damp cloth. You wiped the battery posts, brightened the chrome, cleaned the white walls, and checked the floor for the leak that left a stain. A little water and a little powder, and the car stayed free of the corrosion that ate the neglected ones. A man in 1961 did this the way his father had, treating the car as a thing that answered to steady, small attention. The one box that did a dozen jobs made the weekly round simple because you reached for the same thing every time. The car did not stay sound because it was new. It stayed sound because hands and a box passed over it every week. Number 1, the open box kept within arm's reach. That is all. A 30-cent box, open on the bench, always ready. You kept it where you could reach it without turning around. When acid spilled, you killed it before it touched metal. When grease flared, you smothered it. When a stain, a smell, or a crust of corrosion appeared, you dealt with it the same hour it showed. The damage that ruins a neglected car never got its start. Your grandfather did this without calling it anything. He kept the box where the trouble would be and met the trouble the moment it came. One box, one hand, 1 minute. The corrosion, the fire, the rot that takes a careless man's car never took his. Number 1 is not a trick. It is the readiness underneath every other trick on this list. None of these tricks needed a specialist, a shelf of bottles, or a label you had to read. They needed one honest box and a man who understood the chemistry under his own hands. That knowledge was once the default in every garage in America. It was not magic. It was a mechanic who knew that acid eats metal and alkali kills acid, that grease burns and powder smothers it. He killed the acid before it ate the fender. He smothered the fire before it took the car. He caught the corrosion before it climbed the cables. One box, used with that much sense, saved his customers thousands over the life of a car. We did not lose the box. It still sits on the shelf, 30 cents more than it was. We lost the man who knew 40 uses for it, and the hands that had done each one so many times they no longer had to think. We lost the shelf where one box sat instead of 40 bottles, and the confidence that a person, not a label, decided what a job required. He is gone now, or nearly, and the aisle he would not recognize has replaced him, one bottle at a time. But the knowledge is not buried yet. The next time a battery post is crusted white, do not drive to the store for a can with a picture of a battery on it. Take down the yellow box, mix a little with water, and watch it foam the acid away. The craft is not dead. It is waiting on 30 cents and a little understanding.